Before Chapo escaped prison for the first time, before the Sinaloa cartel, and even before Pablo Escobar, a mother, with the survival instinct to protect her children, became known as the most dangerous and genius drug lord, giving birth to the drug route and creative ways that many cartels will use for the next upcoming years. She built an empire that made many male criminals around her know that she was not to be messed with. My name is Johnathan Martinez, and I will be telling you about the story of Griselda Blanco, also known as the godmother of cocaine or the Black Widow. On February 15, 1943, she was born in Catallín, Colombia, to an abusive mother, Ana Lucia Restrepo. She and her mother moved to Medellin when she was only 3 years old. Biographics gives out more information about Blanco's childhood and the streets that she roamed.
Griselda would have still had a tough childhood. The street her family lived on in Medellin was a slum so rampant with criminality, the authorities effectively declared it a no-go zone. As a kid, Blanco mixed with prostitutes, drug addicts, and all manner of deviant.
Surrounded by a city filled with crime and intense poverty, at the age of 11, multiple sources state that Blanco and a group of children kidnapped a 10-year-old boy from a famous and wealthy Colombian family and held him hostage on the hillside near their home. After several calls to their family trying to force them to pay a massive fine for the safe return of their son, they would not budge. The children of a group jokingly dared Blanco to shoot the boy. Blanco took several steps forward, placed a gun to the young boy's head, and pulled the trigger. That day, she entered the world of crime, and it started a series of a long list of victims. At the age of 14, Blanco escaped the sexual assault of her mother's boyfriend after several years of being beaten and enduring years of sexual assault. This caused Blanco to roam the streets where she engaged in prostitution at a young age. During her time on the streets, Griselda became friendly with many criminals and resorted to crimes such as pickpocketing to stay alive. During this, she marries her first husband, Carlos Trujillo, and they have 3 sons together, Osvaldo, Uber, and Dizon. Trujillo was a smuggler of undocumented immigrants, and because of him, she soon meets her second husband. During their relationship, it is known that the couple had several disagreements about business decisions and ways of living, and Carlos died of cirrhosis a couple of months later. However, sources close to Blanco state that Griselda had him killed without any remorse, establishing her nickname after the famous spider, the Black Widow, a female species of spiders that eats its male's prey after mating. During her second marriage to Alberto Bravo, a famous drug trafficker, she was finally introduced to the cocaine business. Together, they moved to New York and set up the future of smuggling cocaine to the United States from Medellin. Griselda came up with setting up lingerie shops and boutiques in Medellin. She designed special bras and shoes with secret pockets that could carry multiple kilos of coke, leaving no trace through customs. Blanco also created fake passports because she stated that customs would never stop an American citizen. Her chosen smugglers were usually tall, pretty women, the ones who men from customs would lose thoughts due to their beauty. A documentary published by Lifetime titled Cocaine Godmother, it states more about Griselda's Blanco and Alberto Bravo's relationship and partnership.
He had the connections, she had the ideas. Like a permanent light bulb above her head. Every day she found new inspiration. Like using senior citizens to smuggle a few kilos, knowing they never get searched. Went back to Medellin. Only now she was the one calling the shot.
This was an excellent start for Blanco and Bravo. This famous couple from Colombia created an extensive and highly profitable operation, successfully bringing drugs from Colombia to Miami, to New York, and Southern California. In 1975, the authorities confiscated one of their shipments, resulting in 150 kilograms lost. When officers interrogated the workers, it was tracked back to Blanco. In April 1975, Griselda Blanco, Alberto Bravo, and 36 others were indicated for conspiring to manufacture, import, and distribute cocaine. 15 of them were arrested and the rest scattered, becoming fugitives. Alberto and Griselda made it back to Medellin to avoid capture. But shortly after, she returns to Miami, this time alone. However, before going back, Blanco found out that her husband, Alberto Bravo, was stealing from her and blamed him for the seized cocaine, causing a shootout over missing millions. Blanco allegedly pulled a pistol from her boots and shot Bravo in the face, killing her second husband. In an excerpt from Cocaine Cowboy 2, they discuss more in details about Griselda Blanco and Alberto Bravo.
So she got out the car, walked the distance to Alberto. He didn't even bother greeting his wife. She just basically said, Alberto, I have a few things to discuss with you. Alberto, what's going on with our marriage? Alberto said, well, Griselda, I see you've allowed this godmother crap to go to your head. A shouting match ensued. Shooters from both sides looking on. Griselda's shooter's watching her back. Alberto's shooter's watching his back. And they all watching each other. Griselda, in her anger, she reached down to her ostrich skin boot and whipped out a pistol. At the very same time, Alberto pulled out a Uzi. So about the same moment, they fired on each other.
One of the men who was involved in the shootout on Griselda's side was a man named Pablo Emilio Escobar. In Griselda's diary, she writes about her soft spot for Escobar, calling him my cocaine king, or white coke. They developed a mentor-mentee relationship, and she taught the art of drug trafficking to him. After successfully murdering her second husband, Griselda became the face of the newly formed Medellin cartel. She married her banker, Dario Sepulveda, 2 years later, which resulted in her fourth son. Coming back to Miami was an extraordinary decision for Blanco, where she made her reputation as the godmother of cocaine. She was not afraid of being ruthless to her competition and innocent civilians who distrusted her. She plunged into the city and filled it with violence and numerous murders. In 1979, she sent 2 gunmen to enter the Dreadland Mall in broad daylight and murdered 2 innocent men. National Geographic talks more about the Dreadland Mall incident.
Upscale clothing outlets. But in 1979, what happens in this spot signals a new era in organized crime that will last nearly 20 years. It's Wednesday, July 11th, 1979. A sudden burst of gunfire shatters a sultry afternoon.
The shootout occurred at about 2:30 this afternoon when 2 or more Latin males entered the Crown Liquor Store here on the west end of the Dadeland Mall. They were followed by 2 or 3 other Latin males, and then the shooting began.
Blanco forced them to chop their ear and finger, drain their blood, and ship it to the victims' families to prove their loyalty. She did not care if her victims were women or children. She wanted to establish that she was a force to be reckoned with. She established a fast way of murdering people by having shooters on motorcycles. And if you did not pay on time, you and your family were eliminated. If she did not want to pay you, you were assassinated. If she was perceived that you may have crossed her, you were bumped off. She smuggled more than 3 tons of cocaine into the United States annually, netting over $80 million per month. She enjoyed a lavish lifestyle that included a luxury home, parties, and beautiful clothing. She grew more and more popular during this time, causing the DEA to start sniffing their noses around her empire. After years with Dario Sepulveda, they disagreed, resulting in Sepúlveda kidnapping their son, Michael, and returning to Colombia with him. This did not please Blanco, resulting in her hiring assassins dressed as policemen and murdering Dario while their son sat on the couch and watched. After the assassination of her third husband, Blanco's empire was now considered to be a billion-dollar organization. Still, her enemies grew throughout time, and the DEA finally caught up to her in 1985. At 42, Blanco was caught and sentenced to nearly 20 years in prison for narcotic trafficking and 27 other crimes. A History Channel on YouTube details more about the DEA capturing Griselda.
On February 20th, 1985, the DEA stormed Griselda's hideout and they arrested her in her bed while she was reading the Bible. Griselda was sentenced to 20 years for drug trafficking, but that didn't hinder her business in any manner. Her three elder sons, Osvaldo, Dixon, and Ubed, picked it up where she left off and continued to manage the family business.
But the godmother of cocaine did not plan to serve this sentence. During her time in prison, she met Charles Cosby, a journalist who she started a relationship with, and Blanco handed him a note that stated, JFK, 5M. In a leaked phone call, this is what Blanco had to say to Cosby about the heist.
How's Michael doing?
Michael is in Colombia now.
I got something to give you a Michael, too. So is the JFK plan still together? Oh, that's good. I'm glad to hear that, But you be sure to be careful, though,
Be careful for what?
I mean, just always know what you're doing ahead of time,
I love you, too.
Oh, you do?
I remember you today, tomorrow, and forever.
Oh, that's good to hear. I love you so much.
I love you, too.
Yeah, but I love you always, okay?
More kisses, okay?
Okay, Griselda.
Okay, baby.
Okay. Bye.
Blanco organized the kidnapping of John F. Kennedy Jr. She found out his daily schedule of walking his dog around the streets of New York. The kidnappers, hired by the Black Widow, would hold him hostage in exchange for her freedom. The plan was almost a success until a squad of NYPD by and scared them off. Blanco's goal did not work, but instead, she was sentenced to death row after her hitman, Jorge Alaya, testified against her. However, prosecutor Catherine Vogue notes that Alaya was caught exchanging gifts and having phone sex with secretaries at the Miami-Dade State Attorney's Office. Documentary Watch gives out more information about Jorge Alaya and the scandal that was behind his testimonies.
The government's case collapsed in scandal.
There was a problem with Jorge Ayala, who was our star witness against her number one hitman, who became romantically involved with one of the secretaries at the state attorney's office.
As Blanco defense attorneys began to shoot holes, the case started to slip away, hinging on Jorge's credibility to nothing, resulting in them cutting a deal with Blanco. Griselda served a 10-year sentence, and in June 2004, she was released from prison and deported back to Colombia, where she officially retired from crime. Blanco exited a butcher shop in Medellin, Colombia, 8 years later on a warm, sunny day. At 69, two gunmen on a motorcycle shot Blanco, hitting her twice, resulting in her death through her own invention. Empire. Among the blood of over 6,000 victims. Her life fascinated many writers and artists, and her story ended up being blasted in books and motion pictures. She was profiled in Richard Smith's 1990 book, The Godmother, and she was prominently featured in Billy Corben's 2006 documentary, Cocaine Cowboys, and in 2018 sequel. In 2016, HBO announced the development about Blanco's life starring Jennifer Lopez. In 2016, when the news broke out about Jennifer Lopez, this is what reporters had to say.
An HBO movie based around Griselda Blanco, the late Colombian drug lord, according to The Hollywood Reporter. The film is in development. She's going to produce it and star in it. And it's about the rise and fall of Blanco, a notorious drug lord known as the cocaine godmother that helped expand the U.S. drug trade during the 1970s and 80s. By the life of this corrupt and complicated woman for many years. So she's teaming up with HBO and she felt that was the perfect.
Lifetime produced The Cocaine Godmother that following year, with Catherine Zeta-Jones as the main character. 5 months ago, Netflix released pictures of an upcoming TV show starting with Sofia Vergara. She has numerous songs written about her, stretching from Spanish artists to English artists like Migos. Blanco's life was filled with luxury and a cruel way of ruling a cartel. Her creative ways of smuggling cocaine changed the way drug routes were and still are. And her coaching of Escobar made him one of the richest men in the world in 1989. Her life started poor, with no choice but to pick survival. And indeed, she survived.